Developing players is by far the most important aspect to building a championship-worthy roster. And today, we're going to be going over what I consider to be the holy trinity of player development. The three biggest factors when it comes to developing NBA superstars. If your team has three of these factors, I consider it developmental heaven. And if they don't, well, you bet you can do the math. If you stick around to the end of this video, we will look at those three factors and see how they apply to Sir Bronny James. If y'all didn't know, Bronny James is a second-round player who was drafted by the Lakers. Now, why am I talking about a random second-round player? I just thought that maybe it's good to give back to the NBA by talking about some lesser-known players. And I thought, well, maybe talking about a second-round player is a pretty decent start, right? We'll take those factors, see how they apply to Bronny James' situation, and I think it'll give us a good outlook on his first few years in the league and how it will go. So, let's not waste time. Let's get to it. Factor number one. Consistency. Consistency gives players a more accurate benchmark. It typically will let the players know, okay, what are the parameters I'm working with? How many minutes am I playing a night on a consistent basis? And the main thing is confidence, keeping your players confident. And the issue is, if your players have a bad game or a slump of like 4 or 5 games where they're not playing really good, which happens to everybody. It's happened to the greatest players to ever live. They've played bad 3 or 4 games in the regular season. It happens to everybody. So when a rookie goes through that, it doesn't help to drastically lower their minutes out of nowhere. That's not going to help their confidence. And you want to tell them, hey, it happens to everybody, kiddo. Yet you're telling them, hey, it happens to everybody, kiddo, but you're not going to play as much. So you're not really sending the right message. The message don't correlate with your actions, if you know what I'm saying. And if you still don't fully understand it, let's play a game. Let's play Guess the NBA Player. Both players just wrapped up their first season in the NBA. Player on the left played very inconsistent minutes. This shows a range of minutes and the amount of times they played within that range throughout the 82-game season. And player on the left was much more inconsistent. And if you look at their numbers, I mean, their numbers are a lot lower than player on the right. Played much more consistent, played much better numbers. Player on the left, Ausar Thompson, the 5th pick of the 2023 NBA draft by the Detroit Pistons. And the player on the right, Mr. Sir Jaime Jaquez, the 18th pick of the 2023 NBA draft by the Miami Heat. Not only was Jaime drafted much later than Ausar was, the man was playing for the Miami Heat, which the year before they drafted him, they were in the finals. They were in the NBA finals. They were competing. Technically, if you're in the finals a year before and your core hasn't changed, and by the way, they still added Tyler Hero because he was not healthy throughout that run that they had 2022, it was safe to assume that they were still considered contenders. Why is a contending NBA team playing a late lottery pick a much more consistently than a team like the Pistons that in this last season, they were one of the worst teams in NBA history? They had the longest streak of consecutive losses in one season this last year. And you were this inconsistent with your rookie? Like, dude, what are you doing? Like, that makes no sense. Why would you be this inconsistent? Why would you pull a star when you're literally playing for nothing? You're playing for nothing. Just start the man. Just give them that man should have started every game this year. Just like all their other young players. They should have just started every game. Because Jaime went on and played more consistent minutes. He was, and I know this might sound like a joke, but hear me out. He was tied in 9th place with 4 other players for 6th man of the year. Was 4th in the running for rookie of the year. So Jaime, being the 18th pick of the draft and ending up 4th place, he overachieved by a lot. And those 2 nominations, even though he didn't win those awards, are still great confidence boosters. And that's my main thing, is that confidence is the elixir of building NBA gods. And you might say, look, minutes might be inconsistent, but like, you could just check the stats, check their averages and see if they're playing good per their averages, right? Because I mean, hey, if they're playing great per 100 minutes, then I mean, coaches are going to see that and they're going to make those adjustments even if they're not playing consistent minutes. But the funny thing is that you'd be wrong in that assumption. And that takes me to my next factor, which is, like I mentioned before, coaches don't be studying stats like you and I, man. You be giving them too much credit. We can look at 2 examples this year, 2 examples. Steve Kerr, the man would not play Jonathan Kuminga, even though me, you, and everybody watching basketball was like, yo, Jonathan Kuminga kid's playing really great. And Steve Kerr was like, oh yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I'm a lower your minutes. Kuminga had to call the man out in public for him to finally let him play more minutes. And wow, surprise, surprise, the Warriors went on a run and Kuminga was having a coming out party. What a freaking surprise. And then we have the Lakers ex-coach Darvin Ham, who kept starting Taurean Prince and Dennis Schroeder when everybody that knows and watches and plays basketball was like, my mans, there's like 50 better lineups than this. Why are you starting these two guys? Because he had connections with them when they were on the Hawks. You really think Darvin Ham was looking at stats when he made that decision? Exactly. In my opinion, there are two types of coaches in the NBA. There is a developmental coach and then coaches that can win. And on rare occasions, you have coaches that can do both, and those are typically considered like the greatest coaches of all time. If your team has multiple all-star caliber players playing at their peak with a mix of veterans and younger players making up the rest of the team, you most likely have a contender. You want to hire a win now coach. And if you have a young team filled with mostly young players and don't have the talent to really contend yet, then you most likely want to hire a developmental coach. Don't get these confused. If you have a developing team, which that's what we're talking about, developing, and you hire a winning coach, a coach that's priority is to win games or try to win games and not really to develop your young players, you end up with the Monty Williams situation in Detroit, and that ended terribly. They didn't win games and they didn't develop anybody. Developmental coaches will train your players day and night to make sure they improve. They will do everything for them. Literally, the only thing they can't do is play on the court with them. But you know who can? Factor number 3, your team build. This one's gonna be really simple. Most people might think, okay, for development purposes, we want to build a team with like the most young players possible to have the most chances of developing them all at the same time. But that isn't the case. You want veterans on your team helping your players, and they're able to do something the coach isn't able to do, help on the court. They can teach them things, give them a perspective that the coach can't, because they haven't played in years or they've never played professional NBA basketball. So veterans always will offer a perspective that will be different but very valued for that player. I'm not telling you to go out and fill your team with a bunch of like Shaq from the Celtics type players. Like, don't fill your team up with them, but 1 or 2 vets will make a huge difference when it comes to helping your players go a long way. I was kind of quick on the third point. That's it. That's the third point. Want to use those 3 factors and see how will Bronny James fare his first few years in the NBA. And we'll go by them one by one. First factor, consistency. I'm gonna keep it a buck. If he doesn't get sent to the Lakers like D team squad, like I'm sure there's gonna be at least one game where they play him and LeBron together just to have that moment on TV. But I hope like right after they send the man to the D League. I'm not saying that out of spite. I'm saying that because it will help him develop. It's going to be impossible with a extremely contending team for a player like Bronny to see any minutes, if any. Playing 2 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 20 minutes here, 2 minutes here. That's not going to help with his consistency at all. Yes, sitting on the bench, sure, taking that experience in will help. At the end of the day, playing real minutes against real basketball players, that will give him the best experience. So sure, play him 1 or 2 games with LeBron, footage there so people can see it happen for the first time. Then send him to the D League where they can play him on average 20 to 30 minutes and develop him a lot better there. But if he's going to stay right now on the Lakers, he don't really check the consistency box for me. Pillar number 2, a developmental coach. JJ Redick, is he a developmental coach? We don't know. This one's kind of a question mark. He might be a great developmental coach. He might be one of those all-time great coaches that can do both. I think he'll do good, but I don't know if he's a developmental coach. And I guess we're gonna find out. But if he is, I mean, let's read between the lines. The man got offered the job after he started the podcast with LeBron. LeBron probably had a strong hand in helping that man get the job. So I think he will put an emphasis on developing Bronny for sure. And pillar number 3, team build. Now, the team around Bronny, this is the only thing I kind of like gives my thumbs up. Bronny has LeBron James. Bronny has basically the longest tenured NBA player and the oldest player in the NBA right now. Oh, and it's his dad. So like that's gonna provide a wealth of knowledge that like not that many players are privy to. I think that will go a long way. He also has people like Anthony Davis that has played a lot less time, but has still won a championship and good insight for Bronny as well. And then you have younger players on the team like Austin Reeves, who's a younger player who can kind of maybe give him tips to how to survive in a league as like a younger player. So you have a mixture of like long tenured players players kind of playing in their prime, and then young players as well. So he's going to get advice from all over. And the third thing, I would definitely give it a thumbs up. So when I look at it, the first thing, he's not going to have consistency. Second thing is a question mark, because I don't know if he's going to be a good coach or not. And third thing is the team around him, which I think it's a rock solid team, especially a team that has a lot of experience. And for that reason, I'm going to place him in like developmental purgatory. He's not in developmental heaven or developmental hell. He's in developmental purgatory, which explains the thumbnail. See? It all comes together. You just had to wait till the end. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. If you want more content like this, we're gonna make it better. Every single video we're improving. Right now we have about 30 subscribers. Let's get that up to 100. Let's get that up to 1,000, right? We're starting small, but we'll probably get like 1 million subscribers one day. Don't you want to say, yo, I was one of the first 100 subscribers of K-Belly, right? So like, subscribe, tell your friends, leave a like. Appreciate y'all. Have a good one.